And I'm now happy to welcome you, Alan, and talking about the topic sales through LinkedIn, how online relationships can accelerate growth.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so before I pull up my slides, I thought I'd give you guys just a little bit of background information about myself. Maybe kind of explain why someone that's in just outside of New York City is interested in doing different things with companies and startups that are in Berlin, and so or in Europe in general. So let's see, I've been in sales and marketing for over 30 years. Primarily in the financial industry. I used to work for JP Morgan. That was my last corporate gig. And I managed a team of 27. We had $1.2 billion in assets under our management from the team. And we brought in around 36 million US annually. And so I had the opportunity to be able to move with my family to Wiesbaden, just outside of Frankfurt. And my partner works for Boehringer Ingelheim. And so while I was there, I went through the process of trying to figure out, I know I do not want to go back into the corporate world. So what did I want to do? And I was getting my master's at a dual university program with EBS in Oosterwinkel and Durham University in the north of England. And so my focus when I was going through there was, how do I take my skills? How do I take my ideas and make it profitable? And the way I figured out how to do that was to create a company that helps others do that exact same thing. And so I was lucky enough that we had quite a few consulting firms that would come through. And so during the Q&A, I could kind of test out my theory, let's put it that way, and see just if there's anyone else out there that was doing the same thing as I was. And so what I discovered was that while there are a lot of people that do things similar to what we do in the US, not so much when it comes to Europe and outside of the US. So while I'm here and the company is headquartered in New York City, almost all of the rest of my team is located in Germany, primarily around the Berlin area. So hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of an understanding about me, my team, and kind of our outside US focus that we have when working with clients. So let me just dive in here. I'll share my screen. And then I will kind of lead you through this workshop. So as we go along through here, if you have any kind of questions that come up, feel free to write them in the comments, and then we'll go over them at the end. And then, yeah, also, so I want to kind of point out that there's two different sales processes that you can go through when you're working with LinkedIn, or then you're working with really any kind of social media. So there's one form that's a very targeted form, where you find specific companies and people inside of those companies, and these would be your main leads. And for that group of people, you want to take a very slow process. And that's where really what the part that I'm going to talk about today. So you want to really focus on building a relationship so that you can ensure that you're able to, your likelihood of being able to close that sale is highest. But there's also going to be some other situations that you're going to run into where you may need to do more of a mass outreach to be able to try to hit your revenue numbers. So today we're just talking about the targeted growth, and then how you build those relationships. So I just want to start out with a little bit about, why would you want to sell through online relationships? So the biggest one is that it has a worldwide reach. Before, you used to be more focused on individual communities, maybe individual states, certain countries, certain geographies. This allows you to pretty much go everywhere. And then, for example, I've been able to use LinkedIn, and while sitting here at my house, I've been able to work with clients in Germany, Abu Dhabi, India, Pakistan, all over South America, London, all from one central location without having to move. And I've been able to do that by building these relationships online. Another reason with using online relationships is that buyers are now really comfortable working and buying remotely. If this is done correctly, it feels like they're talking with a friend instead of a salesperson. And 78% of social sellers outsell their peers that don't use social media. Another reason that you want to do this is because your customers want it. 64% of buyers say they want a personalized experience. 77% say they want personalized communication. 79% said they want a trusted advisor who adds value. They want the salesperson to provide insightful background. They want them to learn, understand, and anticipate their needs. And 62% say it's extremely important that a salesperson that's trying to get them to buy for them to be active and informed on LinkedIn. They like to network with professionals, and 85% say that it's important that a salesperson have a connection with the company before they would buy from that person. And so one of the best ways to be able to cover all of those different things is to use LinkedIn, because it will provide you that insightful background. It lets you be able to learn, understand, and then anticipate their needs. And then one of the other biggest pieces is that 32% of decision makers said that they respond to cold calls less than 10% of the time, but that they will almost always respond if they're introduced through a personal network. And that's all that LinkedIn is about, is helping you build those personal networks so that you can be able to get to know more people. The other reason is because your competition is doing it. Hopefully by now everyone knows that you need to build relationships to create long-term customers. And then through deepening those relationships, you retain those customers. Also, 94% of the people who use social networking in their sales process report that they close more deals than they did before they started using social networking. And then the final is the researching your network. That's where you find all kinds of valuable information about what's their goals, what are they trying to accomplish, and then where do they see themselves going in the future. And then the big one is the numbers. So LinkedIn is the #1 marketplace to sell, and that's because it has over 610 million members with 121.2 million visiting the site daily. And the biggest are the last three things. So there's 90 million senior level decision influencers, and there are 63 million decision makers that are on LinkedIn. So this is a great place to be able to combine both of those two things so that you can be able to not only help influence those decision makers, but directly reach those decision makers. And then finally, it's also where most Fortune 500 decision makers and executives like to spend their time looking for interesting content. And I think a lot of that is because there are so many good startups that are on LinkedIn that we get to see things from a different direction that maybe you wouldn't see in like a Harvard Business Review, or you wouldn't see in more of a collegiate type journal. So let's talk just a little bit about what should be on your LinkedIn page. So you want to make sure that your page is professional, that you build trust, that you speak directly to your ideal clients, and that you use keywords that they might search for to find people who provide services like yours. And then you want to post and interact with others, and you want to present the image that you are an expert in your subject matter. But above all else, just remember that this is not Facebook. So if it is not business or professional related, don't add it onto your LinkedIn profile. All it could do is just cause some potential buyer to be offended or just not approve of what you're saying. And then that just kills all of your prospects from there on. And then let's talk just a little bit about the company LinkedIn page. So it's just as valuable as your website. And that's because a lot of people go back and forth between the websites and LinkedIn company pages to be able to get a better understanding of the company. 92% of Fortune 500 companies have a LinkedIn page. And many, as I just said, many of the buyers go back and forth and they use LinkedIn to understand the company's culture, products, and expertise. Just like I said with on your personal page, you want to make sure that the corporate page sets you up to be an expert in your subject matter. And you want to make sure that those things that you post add credibility to your sales team. And it's also been discovered that that companies that are engaged on LinkedIn are 40% more likely to be perceived as competitive companies compared to those that are not engaged on LinkedIn. Okay, so most of that I just talked about, hopefully you knew the generals of it. So now I really want to move into the fun part of this. So that's all about discovering how do you find, connect, and build relationship with leads and prospects. So the process that I'm going to take you through is one that's set up based on the idea that LinkedIn is the largest convention in the world. And so as you look at a lot of the different steps that I'm going to suggest that you take in here, I want you to connect that back to how we would do things if you were in a convention. Because otherwise you can sometimes look at it and think that it might be a manipulative product or process. And it's definitely not that. It's just taking those steps you would do if you went to a convention and moving it online. So for example, if you were at a convention and there was a lead or there was someone there that you wanted to connect with, that you thought might be interested in your product, at some point, you're going to go up to them and you're going to introduce yourself. And then once they've mentioned their name, you're going to make sure that you use their name often in that conversation. And at the same time, you're going to be looking to find ways that you have things that are in common. And then how do you continue this conversation? Then after you stop talking to them, you might go to their corporate booth and you're going to talk to other people who are there. You might pick up a pamphlet and look through it and see what are they doing. You might find out what are their future plans. If anyone's open to talking to you about how they, what they struggle with, you're going to want to write all these different things down. And then also, if that person that you want to build a relationship with is presenting somewhere, if they're speaking somewhere, you're going to go and listen to what they have to say. And then afterwards, you're going to stop by and you're going to say, hey, I really found that informative. I really like this, and this from what you were talking about. Is there any chance that we could get together and go have a coffee, a tea, some drinks, anything just to be able to get on a one-on-one conversation with that person? And so I've just taken that process and I've just moved it into the LinkedIn world. And so again, same process here for to do through LinkedIn as you would do at a convention. So first, you're going to identify who those ideal clients would be. You're also going to look and see if maybe you can find some referral partners and possible strategic alliances that you can make. Then you're going to determine how will you connect with them. Then you're going to outline the steps to build a relationship with them. And then you want to move the conversation offline to improve the chance that you can actually close the deal. So there's two different ways that you can prospect on LinkedIn. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm sure you probably already know this. The first one is to do targeted searches. So this is where you use either Sales Navigator or the free option to be able to go through and search for people based on title, company name, location, anything along on that side of it. And then the second one is to get introductions from your contacts. So like I said, I'm just going to give you some quick tips on how to do a targeted search because LinkedIn has so many videos on how to do this and that it would take me too long to be able to go through fully explaining how to do it, and they do it in a phenomenal way. So, but I do want to give you two tips. The first is that when you're doing a targeted search, only people in your network, so your first, second, and third level connections will show up in your results. And if you have a small number of contacts, your search will also be limited. And that's again because it's only your first, second, or third level connections. So hopefully you all know how to do the free search. That's just when you type something into the search bar, and then hit enter, that lets you go on. And then you have other things that will pop up so that you can shrink that process down. This is just an example. If I just went in and I just typed in FinTech and did the Berlin metropolitan area, and this is a list of people that show up, and then also shows how I'm connected to them. And then here I've just done the exact same thing. I've just done it in Sales Navigator. I like using Sales Navigator a little bit better because it will automatically give me some trigger moments. And I'll talk about those trigger moments later on in the presentation. But I find it's a good way just to be able to provide me a bit more information than what I get with the free version. So then the second way that you can go about figuring out how you're going to connect with somebody is to use connections from your contacts. So the strategy with this is to connect with other professionals in different industries who serve similar clients and build relationships with them. And then you're going to go through their list of contacts, and you're going to figure out who can they connect you with and who could they give you a warm introduction. So there's some real value in this, because if you think about it, if somebody has already worked with a company that you want to work with, and they built a strong relationship with them, and the company felt that they brought value, by having them refer you to this same company and this same people, you automatically gain some of the value that the other person already presented. So it's a really smooth way to be able to get yourself in the door and get connections going and get the conversations flowing. So what are some mistakes that others have made? So I am sure you have all seen this, where someone sends you a connection request, you click yes, and then immediately they hit you with something about selling. So stay as far away from that as possible. There's a lot of people that it just completely turns off. And in fact, I've got some of my connections that some CEOs of some large banks that are saying that when they get this, they immediately unfriend that person. So the other thing you don't want to do is ask to connect and then send all services and pricing at one time. This just purely shows that you want to act like you want to build a relationship with me, but all you really want to do is just sell me stuff. The next, which is my favorite, is the one where they say that they looked at my LinkedIn profile and I left such a strong impression that they had to reach out to me immediately, but yet they didn't take the time to actually look and see what I do. My example of this is a company that wants to get me new sales opportunities every month and have me start using their relationship-based marketing blueprint formula. So if they'd actually even looked at what I was doing, they would have recognized that this is what I do. So they're either telling me I'm bad at my job and that they can do it better, or again, they just didn't look and see what I was actually saying that I actually do. And then the final big no-no is don't just go to someone's page and just because you've heard that it's good to like their post, go in and like every single post that they've run for the last couple months. Because again, that just looks strange. It just doesn't look like something that you would naturally do. So let's talk a little bit about the LinkedIn sales sequence that I suggest that people do. So the first is to start out, come up with your list of people that you want to reach out to and look for things that you have in common. So do you have multiple common connections? Did you graduate from the same university? Do you belong to some of the same organizations? Anything along that line. Then you want to send a connection request. And in that connection request, you will mention if whatever it was that you have in common. Then the third step is that once they connect, you want to send a thank you for connecting, and you want to start a conversation. The fourth thing is that you want to do a mix of LinkedIn interactions, and this is a mix of messaging and content interaction, and I'll explain a little bit more what I mean about the LinkedIn interactions. And then after you've sent those 4 interactions, then you're going to want to send a message to inquire about having a chat offline. So what's some things to think about when you're writing up your connection request? Because there's a lot of people that think that sending a connection request is just either clicking the button to say you want to connect, or just sending a message and saying, hey, let's connect. And there's actually a real process that you can use to be able to increase the likelihood that your lead's going to actually connect to you. Because especially in today's world with as many people who are using LinkedIn, every time we get a connection request, we kind of evaluate a little bit to see what's the real meaning behind why you're wanting to connect. So tip number one is you want to make sure you personalize it and that you give them a good reason why they should click to accept versus to ignore. So again, that might be that you have something in common, that you're working towards the same type of things. You want to treat this as the same way you would the first time you meet someone face to face. And then you want to always make sure that you leave an excellent first impression. And you want to act like you're at a networking event, which means you want to greet them by name. And if you have something in common, you want to mention it, and you want to try to figure out a way to continue the conversation. So then once they've accepted the request, then you want to always make sure that you send a welcome message. So you want to remember that the goal with this is to start a conversation. Again, it's not to sell, like I have on down. So an easy way to be able to start that conversation is you might want to ask a question. And you might bring up something that you've discovered about from their LinkedIn page that you didn't know previously. And the number one thing is you want to make sure that you ask for nothing in return. You are just starting a conversation and trying to build a relationship. Now, when I talked about LinkedIn interactions, there's primarily two different types of ways that you can interact with people. So the first one is looking for ways to add value to your new connection and something that they might find valuable or interesting. So these would be articles that you might see posts from other people. There might be articles that you found elsewhere, and so that then you send those to them. And so to discover which things you want to use, you're going to look to see what are they interested in, what's important to them, and then what problems do they face. And then the easiest type of interaction that there is just liking and commenting on their post. So I'm going to walk you through some different messages that I've sent out in the past, and then kind of so that you get a better idea of how to kind of pull all of this together. So this was somebody that is a marketing director at a large bank. And I discovered her as I went through on Sales Navigator, and discovered that not only did we both work, have a past in the financial service industry, we graduated from the same university. So when I reached out, I just said, I hope you're well, came across your profile and thought it would be great to connect since we both graduated from BSU and work in the financial services industry. So fully explained the reason why I think it would be good to connect. We have two things in common, and should have a pretty high likelihood that they will connect. So then she responded back to me, said, glad to connect. She talked about the fact that we went to the same university, also talked about how she found the changes that have been taking place in the financial services to be really interesting, and she's looking forward to see what's going on in the future. So then I responded with my welcoming response and just said, thanks for accepting. I brought up the university again. Also talked about how banking is constantly changing, and then offered and said, if I see any interesting articles on the steps banks are taking to meet their 2021 goals, that I'll send them your way. So I'm again mentioning the two things we have in common. And then I'm also saying, hey, I'm going to try to keep this communication going. My goal is not for this to be the end. And so for her, I'll find some articles and I'll send the articles and keeps the conversation going along. So obviously there will come times when you don't have anything in common with someone and you want to reach out. So my suggestion would be the first way is to see if your connections are connected to them, and then ask them to send a message to loop you in and connect. But if that doesn't happen, then you can also just send and say, you've come up with my feed a few times, so I thought it would be worth connecting. I know we don't know each other, but I hope you accept my connection request so that I can follow more of your work. So you've already said, hey, the reason that I'd like to connect with you is because you've come up with my feed a few times. And then you're also saying, but you realize that you really don't know them. And so this is just an example of how you find those interactions. So this is one of my contacts, Tobias, and he was speaking at an event and posted it on LinkedIn that he was going to speak at the event. So then you can just go on and you can say, sounds interesting, look forward to it, can't wait. You can share it, which is one of the things that people love the most. But while this all sounds very simple, because I know we all post, we all comment on different people's posts and we like different people's posts. When you're doing this for your leads, it will make you stand out. Because just look shortly over here on Tobias's screen. Under his activity, he has over 6,000 followers. But if you look on his comments, he has only 46 people who even liked it, and only one person commented. And so hopefully you all know also, if someone comments or likes on your post, it shows up in your stream. So you'll get to see that person. So if you want to make yourself quickly and easily stand out to one of your leads, all you have to do is comment, and it will. You'll pop up, you can comment there, and then it makes it much easier for your next response to come back because they know that you've taken an interest in something that they're doing. Now, sometimes you'll discover that perhaps your lead doesn't post anything themselves. So the easy way to be able to do the same process is to then look at their company side and then see if there's articles there. And if there is, do the same thing. Post a comment, very informative, great article. And then if you want, then you can message your lead and say, hey, I just saw this article on your company's page, and I thought this, and this was very informative. So this does two different things. One, it shows that that buyer, that lead, that you're actually actively involved with being connected to their company, which, if you remember on one of my earlier slides, that was something that most buyers wanted. And secondly, it shows them a chance for you to be able to send a very direct, personalized message with them, which was another thing that, if you'll remember, on that list. So you can meet two different things at one time, even with somebody that isn't actively posting on their own site. And then comes that last piece where you're going to want to move the conversation offline. And the reason for this is pretty simple. It's easier to build rapport, build trust, and provide value to your prospects if you're doing it one-on-one. And it's also the best way to be able to really ask questions so you can understand their needs and concerns. And then you can also talk about your solutions and how they can help solve those needs. And because of that, it's easier to convert a prospect into a client. So here I'm going to give you some examples of some easy ways to message for these chats. This is an example of one for someone who you've just recently connected to, and you've just gone through doing all of those LinkedIn touch points, messaging, and now you feel that you've got the relationship to the point where they would really be open to talking offline. And so it's pretty simple. You just say, I know we haven't been connected for very long, but I'd like to learn more about you and your company. Would you be open to having a short chat? Also, let me know if there's any skills you would like for me to endorse. So you're asking them for their time, but then you're also offering to go in and endorse them for their skills. And likewise, there may be times when you have older connections that you want to re-engage, and you can use basically the same message. The one difference is that you want to change and say that you've been connected for a while instead of that you haven't been connected for very long. And then again, you want to move this, if you can't do it face-to-face, you want to make sure that you move it to a video conference instead of using the phone. Again, it allows you to connect more personally, you gain more of their attention, and the meaning behind their and your statements is much clearer. And finally, it's 2021. If after the last 18 months and 2020, everyone's not gotten comfortable with video chatting, then we got to help them step it up. So it's time to move on to this next piece. So, okay. So this is my LinkedIn interaction contact sequence. So this is what you do when that first shot where you thought you had the relationship prepared so that this was the perfect time for you to be able to reach out and say, hey, let's chat. And then something went wrong and they just didn't reply, or well, this is primarily if they just didn't reply. So the way this process works is you're going to want to wait 7 days from when you sent that first request for a chat. And then you want to do a LinkedIn interaction. And then 2 days after that, you're going to follow it up with another message asking for a chat. Then if you hear nothing from that, 7 days later, you're going to do another LinkedIn interaction. And then after 2 days after that, you're going to send the final request for a conversation. And then you're going to continue to do your LinkedIn interactions, but then you want to stop with the follow-up messages and just put a note for 4 months out, put a note in your CRM and say that you want to start the messaging process again. A lot of times people will tell you to do a much deeper level of follow-up messages. But I find with LinkedIn, because it's so relationship based and it's so much about building a community of people, that you really want to make sure that you don't dive too far down in, because while this process might have worked the first time, might not have worked the first time around, it could still work later on. So this is one of my social cells. So when you're trying to do one of the follow-up messages, it just says, hi, Timo, I just saw your profile. I was on LinkedIn and it reminded me to reach out. Any chance we could have a quick chat? So the one trick that you want to make sure that you do with this is before you would send this message, you need to make sure you go onto Timo's LinkedIn profile, because many of us have the ability to be able to see who's been on our profile and who hasn't been on our profile. The next one is just a simple also social cell. So, hi Sven, your post just came up in my feed and it reminded me to reach out. Any chance we can have a quick chat? Again, with this one, first you want to make sure that they actually posted something. And secondly, if they did, you want to make sure that you go on and that you like that or you comment on it before you send this, this connection or this message. And then the third is just a short and sweet reminder, just seeing if you got my last message. I know things can get lost and I wanted to get back on your radar. Any chance we can have a quick chat? And then the last, it's just a clear, casual call for action, and just says, can you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether you're interested in chatting? And then either way, I wish you all the best. So you still want to make sure that you're staying friendly, that you're wishing them the best, but you're just asking them just to give you a quick yes, no, so you can move on and then you can start focusing on someone else. So if they do respond that they're not interested, you still want to respond back to them. You want to thank them. You want to ask a question and you want to wish them well. So my example that I give here is I thank them for letting me know that right now is not the right time. And then I'm going to ask that the next time they would need services like mine, that it'd be all right for me to be the first person in line that they speak to. And then again, all the best. So the thing with this it does is you're acknowledging the fact that right now might be the time, not the right time, but it might be in the future. And then you're asking, hey, when that future event happens, could you please reach out to me first? And now most people are going to reply yes to that type of a statement. It doesn't cost them anything. It's a quick, easy thing, and it's just being polite. And so with that, then you would respond back and you'd say great, and then that you've attached a company overview so they have a better idea of what you do, and then also how your clients have benefited from working with you, which might trigger them to be able to actually look into it, and then might change their opinion and they might come to you quicker. And then you also want to just add that if it's okay, I'll reach out again in 4 months to stay connected. So at the same time, you're saying there's going to be at least 4 months where I'm going to leave you alone, but eventually I'm going to come back just to check in and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. And then on that rare situation where you might get someone that says no, you're still going to reply, but just say, thanks for letting me know and all the best. And then you'll move on to the next lead that hopefully will come through and give you some business. So if you've gone through that process and you have those people that you weren't able to connect with, and now it's 4 months later, and you need to come up with a reason to be able to re-engage. And one of the best is to look for trigger events. because that lets you be able to reconnect in a natural and comfortable way. So if they have a new job, they've got a promotion, if they viewed your profile, which is a huge one. Every time you see a lead that comes back and takes a look at your profile, you need to make sure that you immediately respond back to them just to ask if there's anything that you can help with, because more than likely they are now searching for for services like what you provide, which means they're ready to at least evaluate their buying options. So another trigger event might be that they updated their profile, that you both liked someone else's post, that they liked or commented on your post, or they were mentioned in the news, or they posted an article. And so again, a lot of this is the exact same things that you would do in the natural world. So if you were friends with somebody and you found out they've got a new job, they got a promotion, they were mentioned in the news, or there was an article that they wrote that was published, you'd probably reach out and say congratulations and, you know, have a conversation with them. So it's, again, same things. Now we're just moving it electronically and doing it through LinkedIn. So, okay, so there's going to be some reasons why you might not get a response when you're going through this process. And the first one is that, you know, no sales strategy works 100% of the time or even 50% of the time. If I could have come up with a way to do either of those two things, I probably would have been with Richard Branson going up into the sky. But unfortunately, I wasn't. And so one of the other reasons is that your leads just may not be in the right target market. So maybe you need to shift target markets and focus on a different area. Your leads do not need your services right now, or they may need your services, but they're just not ready to be able to implement your solutions. Or your solution just may not be that high on their list of priorities, that there may be other things that they feel they need to solve first and then come back to you. Or they may have personal professional problems that are distracting them. Or then again, finally, it may be that your messages just are not capturing their attention and need to be rewritten. That's why I always suggest that if you're, when you're writing up these messages, do some A/B testing. So use a few different types of messages that you're going to reach out to different people with, see which ones work the best, and then continue on using those. And then finally, as I've said before, that, you know, just because they are not ready to buy now doesn't mean that in 6 to 12 months they won't be. So make sure that you keep up on you know, your follow-up and stay connecting back to them every 4 months. So, okay, so as an overview, to be able to be successful using relationship sales on LinkedIn, first, you need to create an outreach strategy. And then that strategy needs to be set up to establish you as a trusted authority. Then you're going to need to be active on your site. And that activity should be focused on building interest in yourself and your company. And then you want to provide value to your connections. And then you do that by showing how your solutions have solved other clients' problems. So much as Tino put his QR code up there and the fact that we're talking about LinkedIn, I would appreciate it if you would capture my QR code. It will then take you directly to my LinkedIn page where we can connect. Where I can then, you can see more of my advice, and also I can answer some of your other questions that you might have. So I want to wrap up by just saying thank you for your time. I hope you found value in some of the things that I presented here. And if you have any kind of questions, let's just open up the floor and let's start talking about them. And there we go. All right. Hey.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
No, who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I was wondering, this advice seemed incredible, by the way. Thank you so much for this session. But I was wondering, does it get to a point where the lead may find it a little bit intrusive, especially the part where you mentioned that if you get no answer, then you keep on messaging them after some time. Do you think there's a chance they might get a little bit upset about this?
Well, so okay, so if you're a buyer, so yes and no is going to be my answer. So you're going to kind of have to be able to read your lead to be able to see where they are in that process. But as someone who's been a buyer in the past, we get sent things all the time. So we pretty much expect that we're going to get sales pitches thrown at us. But the trick is, if you can keep doing it from a relationship-based standpoint, then you should be okay. So what I'm saying is, if all you're doing is just reaching out to them and saying, hey, I want to talk with you, buy my stuff, that's going to get old really fast. But if in between there, you're still going through and you're liking things that they've posted, or you're sending them articles that help solve an issue that they have, then they will slowly start seeing you as a trusted advisor, which then would make it easier so that when you start those referrals or you start those follow-up messages, that they're more likely to answer it versus, you just being somebody that's just constantly sending a sales message.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, who's next? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Can I
Hello.
go?
Yep.
Thank you for the interesting presentation and advices. My question, I have a couple of questions, but we'll start with first. LinkedIn, past maybe several weeks or months, they shifted more to follow people instead of connecting. Also, they have a new like shifting of profile. So you put the follow button instead of connect, and then you have how many followers you have. And it gives also greater exposure of the content that you share. This makes a little bit more difficult to connect with people. Maybe it's another interaction between how do you fit this LinkedIn algorithm, I don't know, way of working in your algorithm of approaching people and to network with them.
Okay, so from my understanding, the following is an option that you can pick. So you can say whether or not you want people to connect with you or follow. So I'll give you the way to get around that, and then I'll give you my opinion about using the follow. So if you follow someone, you're still going to be able to see their post. So you could still comment on the post, and you can still message people, even if you're just following them. So you can still do similar things, whether you're able to just connect directly or you're just forced to follow. Now, from what I've been seeing a lot with people that want you to follow them, that is my feeling, truly just my own opinion. That's people that are saying, I don't want to talk to you. I just want you to get what I'm doing. So if you come into that situation, if that's the message that they're giving, then most likely they're never going to be a good sales lead to start with, because they're not interested in interacting with anybody else. They just want you to read what they're doing. And that's, again, I have no research to back that. That is purely just my impressions.
I will tell you, because LinkedIn introduced its so-called creators mode. And I switched because LinkedIn promised me kind of that if I post something, it will get greater exposure. But it's on exchange that people follow me. And when somebody clicks follow me, I can follow him back. And since I'm in such mode, and if I really want to connect, I go and click the 3 dots and connect still with the same. But
right.
this is kind, I think, a trade-off of, because also if you send too many connections, you get you connect people you don't maybe really know, follow them, and this is the limitations that here. But this was just to share my experience. It was for maybe a month and a half or something like this since I switched.
And did you notice, with being in the follow mode?
The thing is, I see more and more people that they switch to this, and then instead of number of connections, you see the number of followers, and then it pushes you to follow people. They get notification, and of course you can engage further with them when you share back links, etc. But this is something you really need much more efforts, and maybe, as you said, maybe people don't want to get connected, but to follow them. But this is another obstacle that Facebook. But recently, this is my. So I moved to this, experimenting. So I still, if I want to connect with somebody, I write a personal message. Find, of course, it's like hunting. You start to sniff after the person, like, comment, etc., until you make the connection. Also, I follow, and then in, let's say, 2 weeks, I send the connection after re-engage, to just not to oversell or something like this. So this was what I was interested, maybe if you experience similar. The other comment is I very often use, because people often share where there is their birthday. So it's a very nice way to re-engage and keep. So then they see you're not only the salesperson, but if you write not just happy birthday, but you write the name. If you know a little bit about the local language, you can localize it. This is also another option that you can re-engage in addition to your suggestions as well. This is what is working for me, and I wanted to share. And the other, you mentioned something, CRM and moving offline. There are different tools that allows actually to export the connections on TrainPortal directly linked to LinkedIn. Do you have experience with such tools, and what do you think about this, like, not automation, but let's say, because fully automated is not working, facilitating connections or something like this? Do you have experience with such?
Experience with using
CRM solutions and tools
automated
to automate, let's say, getting the contacts, because when you have a lot of connections and maybe you suddenly get a CRM, it's really nice to put offline or on another online tool all these connections. So what is your experience with this?
So that's kind of what I talked about in the beginning. So there's 2 different sales processes that you can use with LinkedIn. So while I will tell you, LinkedIn does not want any automated systems running on LinkedIn. I'm positive we've all experienced getting messages that are automated. So it's happening. So you can do that. And I would say that if you find something like that works, then you want to make sure that you do it to, like, not your primary targets, so that you can kind of hit, like, maybe some peripheral things, so you can try to go at mass, but you just really have to watch, because that's really when LinkedIn starts. They'll block you for a week because you've sent too many connection requests, and you just start to get a lot of different things. But like, as I was showing earlier, that's not how the majority of your buyers want to get connected. Because I've even had that where I sent I just got it a couple weeks ago. I personally sent a connection request to somebody, and their immediate response was, "Are you a bot?" Even though I mentioned their name, I mentioned where they went to school, I mentioned where they worked and that we had worked together, they still thought I was a bot. So, if you want to really make yourself stand out, I would try to go away from that. Because that was then, my first response back was, hey, yes, I know that this is going on a lot, but I'm a live person. But still difficult to go from there to then try to build a relationship and then try to sell,
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure. And then anybody else have a question? Trying to look really quickly through comments here.
I was just wondering if you had any advice on become an expert in the field or appear to be. What kind of things you would look for people to try and put out there?
Okay, so yeah, so if you want, well, in pretty much anything that you see that's that if you look at your situation, you say, what would make my leads buy from me versus from somebody else? What knowledge would they want me to display that says, hey, I can do this better than someone else? Whatever that is, that's what you want to focus on. So it might be surveys. So or research. Everybody loves research. So if you can show that you've done some form of new research, even if it's as simple as a, I just forgot the name of it, SurveyMonkey. If you're doing a SurveyMonkey and then providing the results of that, people love that. You can do another nice thing is you can do the surveys through LinkedIn, which then get people to interact with you. And then you can do multiple of those and then combine that all together and then present one group of data. It also doesn't necessarily have to be something that that you've written. So if there's like for myself, if I do see something from that I'll see in a scholarly journal or I'll see in HBR, I'll read through it, summarize it, and then present it. It's not my research, but I've also then shown how here is someone else's research. This is my interpretation on what's important with it. What do you do? What's your service or business or?
So it's in the beer industry. So yeah, so brewing and beer sort of
Okay.
logistics and stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, so you might want to just put things about if you've discovered that there's a new technique that makes a beer sweeter or drier, or if there's trends that are taking place, and if people are still going towards microbreweries, or are they switching to something else? So just mentioning things like that. I think that's how you can kind of stand out.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, so somebody asked about having 2 private profiles on LinkedIn. I suppose I'm trying to figure out what the goal with that would be. Let's see. Is that from Mark? Is that because, do you have 2 different businesses and you're trying to have 2 different profiles, that one's focused towards one business and one towards another? Okay, well, so my answer to that is that to me sounds like that's twice the amount of work to not, to get the same outcome. So unless there's a specific reason why you need to, you would really want to hide from people that you're doing one thing in one profile and have something in the other. That would be my only thing. That yeah, I don't think that would help in the whole process, because now you're building 2 completely different communities. And if you can just keep it all together in one, you should be able to express the 2. And
I think LinkedIn offers to merge profiles if they find something like this about. And also another comment, since we are speaking about LinkedIn, but maybe similar behavior works with other networks, if it's for business. So Facebook is more like business to customers. Again, nobody wants directly to be to sell them, but maybe for Germany, it's Xing. It's also very popular network in Germany, and I think your ideas pretty good match Xing as well. So because it's natural way to get connected with the people.
Yeah.
And there are also many other networks that are too localized, and okay, LinkedIn is strong enough, but they're really quite specific or industry related networks. So this is it's nice advice to be the more not
Yeah. So
not
like
selling and
so yeah. So that's the one thing I would say when we talk with the different social medias, because yes, you can use all kinds of things. There are people who have success using Instagram to build up clients. You know, there's lots of different things. The trick is each media is going to have a special certain things that are going to work there where they won't work elsewhere. So like, for instance, like on Facebook, Facebook is great if I'm having an event to put on there and get people to attend the event. But it's not a great place for me to be able to connect with somebody to talk about strategies. You know, it's great for building my brand awareness. It's great for letting people know about when I'm having an event, getting people to attend the event. You know, but I can't build that as much of a connection for the business through Facebook as I can through LinkedIn. You know, Facebook can lead to then people coming to an event, and then through that event, I build the connection. But you know, each one's just a little bit different when it comes to that. And then let's see. Somebody asked a question about, could you use these strategies to validate business ideas or production ideas with new people? Do you want to go in a little bit more about that one? I think that's Fadi.
Yeah. Hi, Alan.
Hey.
So basically what I was wondering is, suppose in your company you have a new business idea and you would like to see if actually somebody would be willing to pay for it, for example. Then would it also be possible to somehow take this slower approach where you have to build a relationship first and then try to maybe pitch the idea?
I think you would find that that'd be one of the easier things to do. The trick is you want to make sure that you are able to easily communicate to them that you're at this point in time, you're not trying to sell them something. You just want their advice. And I think you will find there'll be a lot of people that will be open to having a conversation with you coming to them and saying, hey, I think of you as an expert in this industry, and I'm thinking about doing this. Do you have a couple minutes to be able to talk about whether or not this is something that you think is a good idea? You know, because that's purely all in your market research. And you know, the more people you can involve when you're doing that, the better your outcome is going to be. And you're going to find that you can probably get higher up the line of command if you're asking it from a research point of view. And then, of course, the ones that tell you that, yes, they think it's a great idea, once you've done it, you come back to again and try to sell.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, or where are we?
Looking good.
I had a question. Are you going to share your presentation? Or
Yeah.
if not, maybe you can share your LinkedIn profile because it was too fast to scan or to.
I realized halfway through that I should have started. I normally always start this process off with, since moving back from Germany to the New York area, the speed that I speak at has gone back to its original. It's about 3 times as fast. So yeah, I should have warned everything of that, but I'm still speaking slower than what I normally would in the city.
I think it's okay. It's okay.
So yeah, that's either way. I can either post the slides on my LinkedIn page, and then if you guys connect with me, you can get it that way, or I can send it to Tino if you want to send it out that way also.
Of course, like I think there are several ways. If you connect to us or directly Alan, we can share it with you. So here is on the one hand the LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect with me again, here is my email. Please don't Twitter it, but hey, there you go. Then yeah, one of us definitely can share it with you.
Yeah, and if you didn't get my QR code, you can always go back to the event listing on LinkedIn, and you can click in through there to me also. But yeah,
I got the connection to Meetup. Will there be a follow-up on it?
Not necessarily, no. Just connect on LinkedIn, and then or here via the chat box where you can see the contact data and my LinkedIn, and then we're happy to provide it to you.
Okay. Since many people shared their LinkedIn profiles, is it okay that everybody is doing it?
Of course, please. Would be
No, it's
awesome.
just asking. It's
absolutely. Please feel free to connect. That would be a great opportunity. Definitely.
okay. So don't be afraid also from my profile. So click on the 3 dots to connect. So I'll be happy to connect and help if needed. But it's a great event. What to expect next? You mentioned about 2 events that are
Startup Culture is next. Yeah.
Can you share the link that we can put it in calendar? Or...
Of course. There you can also find it. Check this one out. Let me give you an HTTPS, then you can directly.
Yeah. It's forwarding properly.
And there you can also find it. You can find the Meetup, Eventbrite, everywhere. And of course, in the newsletter we share it too.
Okay.
There's also one last question that Ayushri had. Do you think the organic reach of LinkedIn posts has reduced, and how can we increase the reach as a brand?
Okay, so I think, all right, so I think one of the major things that we need to do with LinkedIn, if you're going to be on it, is you've got to expand your connections, because that is the trick. I think that might be what LinkedIn's trying to do with the follow, is to try to help boost that. But at the same time, as you're growing your number of connection requests, it's far more important to have the right people in your connection group than to have 15,000 connections. Because there's a lot of people that you'll see and they keep talking about just crossed 15,000 new connections, or just made 20,000 new connections. That's great for them if that's what their goal is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right people that really would be interested in the services that they provide, or people inside your industry that you can gain advice from. But I think as long as you're growing your connection request, I don't think you have to worry about your organic spread dropping.
Thank you, Alan.
Again.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you. That was really helpful.
All right. I think Tino may have frozen again.
Yeah, true.
All right, everybody. All right, well, if he pops back in the next couple seconds, we'll have him say something. But if not, then I thank you all for joining me today. Hopefully you found some value. Let's get connected on LinkedIn. And then, yeah, if you have any other questions, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. All right. Have a good rest of your night.
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah.
No, sorry, you got frozen smiling. That's good.
From my side, it's quite simple. Yeah, if you share what you learn on the way, that's what people are mostly interested in, especially when it comes to the context. If they can also get something out of it. Yeah. So if I can give a few examples here of the people who are in here, I know Josh. If you connect to people in the either brewery space or in the green space, right, and you share with them how you build up your idea, they'd be more than happy to know how it works. Yeah, it's just one of the examples. So this is what I can recommend you. Start sharing your journey as soon as possible. Do it in a meaningful way. Well, of course, we can do another webinar when it's about specific hacks, like don't use any font converter. The LinkedIn algorithm doesn't read it anymore. Don't use any bad words, stuff like that. I think that's easier to learn. You can tick it off a list. The rest comes with experience. So super simple. Start from today, and you will step by step build up an outreach. And I think it will be super interesting to see where LinkedIn is in a few years. So if you don't start now, similar probably to TikTok, and I have to also, knock on my own shoulder that I have not started yet, which I should definitely do. So same as that. People definitely tell me about TikTok that I should start now. So, and it's quite easy. Start now, share your journey, share what you've learned, make it meaningful for your contacts. And then I'm quite sure that you will easily grow your network and people will like to follow and interact with you.
Yep.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you so
Alan.
much.
It was really great. Hope to see you latest next week. It was my pleasure. Back in Berlin tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.